Well, I've come over to the stand of Countryman Cider, and I'm with Vernon. And Vernon, it always seems to me that cider is... It's just the flavour of the West, isn't it? It's the most typical drink you'll find in the West Country.
Yes, it's very popular, and of course here in Plymouth, certainly with regard to Devon, it's always been a good, famous cider county. There's always been quite a lot of pubs in Plymouth as well, where they sell different forms of cider, not only just the sort of the mainly commercial ciders, but the traditional ciders as well, which is what we specialise in. We've been going since 1858 making cider in the Tamar Valley, in the north of the Tamar Valley, just south of Launceston, but north of Tavistock at the village of Milton Abbot, and we're doing very well today here, thank you. People are willing to sort of try the different flavours that we have, because they're quite different actually from what people are used to with carbonated ciders in the shop. So they're enjoying having a taste of something different. They quite enjoy sort of reflecting on the different sort of tannins or bitterness or sweetness or fruitiness of the different cider to determine which one they might sort of want to buy either as presents or to take home to consume while perhaps they're going to watch some sporting events.
Yeah, of course. Now, when you mentioned the fact that your business is, well, over 150 years old, I mean, would it have been set up where it is because of the orchards in that place at that time?
I think that's partly the reason, but a little bit of history. If you go back to the 1850s, 1860s, corn was an extremely expensive product. And, of course, it was wheat and barley that were malted to produce beer. So beer was, in fact, a very expensive product compared to cider, whereas in Devon, particularly with the valleys, you could easily grow apples in the same fields that you used for actually... grazing cattle or grazing sheep. So because apples were very plentiful, most large farmsteads had cider making equipment, and in fact either a cider barn or a cider storage area, because you've got to remember that years ago, 150 years ago, most of the work that's now done by machines was done by a lot of farm labourers. So a typical farmhouse, as well as the farming family, probably had 3 or 4 other young families living there, or young lads who were helping out on the farm. And obviously, they all like to have a drink now and again, so cider was perhaps the most appropriate and easiest way to enable them to have a drink. And also it kept the farm labourers and the farm force busy in the autumn, when perhaps after harvest was over, there wasn't quite as much work to do on the farm.
Fair enough. Now let's have a look at which different types of cider you've got over here. I mean, that looks like a very traditional cider bottle, is that right?
Yeah, it's fair to say that is a cider jar, a 1 litre, just an interesting reflection on tradition and so forth. These are Italian glass jars, but this is a way of the world with regard to modern industrial production. We also produce cider which we sell in other bottles, and they come from the south of France. But as I say, once again, this is the international economy we're talking about. I mean, if you're talking about traditional cider jars, we do. This is a sort of a display jar just on my left, which is quite nice. But we also sell 1 or 2 pottery jars. These are sort of traditional cider flagons.
Yeah.
They're quite popular as presents because they are made by a potter, and of course they reflect the type of flagon that cider was traditionally served in. Because we've also got on your right, actually, right at the end of the stand,
this one here,
that will be a typical flagon from the old days, where in fact a typical farmer or worker would be given his daily allowance of cider during haymaking, because cider was very important in haymaking times, because it was hot weather like it is today, and if you're doing hard physical work, you drain away the liquid from your system, and cider was a very good means to replenish the liquids in the system during the day, and also it kept the farm workers perhaps happier than usual.
Exactly, I was just thinking that very thing. You'll work harder if you're happy, that's for sure.
That's right, yes indeed, yeah.
All right, well look, Vernon, it's lovely to see you today, and I'm sure Flavour Fest is going to be successful. for you, especially if the sun's shining.
Oh, well, it's already been successful. I've got to say, we've always done every Flavour Fest since it started, and we always find it a great success. To be fair, come rain or shine, obviously today there's a huge number of people out. Thousands and thousands of people round about. But even when it rains, perhaps some of the less casual visitors don't bother to turn out to Flavour Fest, but what I call the real food enthusiasts still turn out and give a good attendance and a very good at sort of coming round to purchase what they see as unique regional food.
Well, that's what we like to hear. Vernon, thank you very much indeed.
Right, thank you.